please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. First order of business is the approval of the agenda. I need a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
Second.
And a second. Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Ms. Beal, that passes. The next item is the approval of the Board of Education minutes for the June 18th meeting. I need a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
Abstain.
One abstention. Very good. Next item would be Rockwood Patron Comments. I don't believe we have any patron cards, so I don't have to read all of that. Next item is the Superintendent and Board Comments, so I'll turn it over to Dr. Knows.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Somebody said hi. I like that.
Communications Director.
All right, I've got quite a few things tonight. I'll try to be brief, but you know I struggle with that. So we'll start with some good news things. We have a Eureka High School alumnus, Christopher Coletti, has become only the second Boy Scout venturer in the entire country to earn the Dr. Albert Einstein Supernova Gold Award. I don't know what that is, but that sounds quite impressive to me. The prestigious award required an in-depth research project for a current STEM-related concern and a written report along with an oral presentation to a special committee. So, Matt, I don't know if you know more about what that is, but that's pretty impressive, I think.
You caught me on this one, though.
Yes, so congratulations to Christopher Coletti. And congratulations to the 9 students who were awarded the last round of National Merit Scholarships for the year. You can see the list of students, their probable career field, and what university they will be attending on the Rockwood website. We know those are challenging and rigorous situations to find themselves National Merit Scholarship winners, so congrats to them. And Marquette Senior, I should know the student's name by now as far as how to say it, Verity Group. I'm probably messing that up, but Verity is the first Rockwood student ever to be chosen for the National Honor Choir. She will sing at the Opryland Resort in Nashville in October, and we wish her the best of luck. It's very impressive as well. And this was the first year Stanton Elementary participated in the American Heart Association's Jump Rope for Heart fundraising campaign, and they made the top 10 list in Missouri for most money raised in the school category. And I can tell you, I was around their school when that was going on, and they were really passionate and excited about it, so kudos to them. Rockwood South Middle School student Blake Kerr had quite a trip last week. He had lunch at the White House. One of our students. Lunch at the White House. Blake was the state winner in the National Recipe Contest. His reward was a trip to Washington to have lunch with President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama. So congratulations to Blake. Another very exciting piece of news for our district. I'm sure that you've heard this, but Rockwood has been named a 2015 top workplace by the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. This is the second year in a row that Rockwood made the list in the large employer category. More than 160 companies, nonprofit groups, and government agencies agreed to participate in the survey conducted by Workplace Dynamics. Nearly 60% of Rockwood employees participated and took the survey. So it was a good showing on the survey. And there's lots of things that the results showed, but for example, the results showed that employees believe Rockwood operates with strong values and ethics, and employees feel they are efficient, and there is good inter-department cooperation. So we should be proud of that, and definitely proud of our employees and the climate that we've created and nurtured in the district, that they would feel that and make us a top workplace. So congratulations to you all, to us, to Rockwood. That's very, very exciting. Let's see. we've got bear with me here. Make sure I do my introductions. We've got Brittany. We hired in closed session our new coordinator for education, equity, and diversity for the 2015-16 school year. One of our familiar faces, who is currently a social worker, Brittany Hogan, has been selected for that position. We're very, very happy. We did earlier, in case you remember, we did have another candidate that we put in that role, but that just didn't work out, and we're thrilled to have Brittany, who's an internal candidate. We know she's going to do very well, and I complimented her to the board because we asked her if she was interested in the role, and were willing to take her. I guess Lisa was that about 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and she asked permission through Terry and Lisa to start doing the job, even though she knew the board hadn't actually approved her. So she's been on the job and learning it and doing it, and she's going to do great things. So welcome, Britt. Those are the only introductions that I have tonight. Sarah Padberg, who the board did approve me to hire a principal, an interim principal for Kerrs Mill Elementary School last time because we were in a pinch. We lost our principal who got a promotion to go out to the Francis Howell District, and talked with Sarah, and happy to have her in that role as interim. She couldn't be here tonight, but she's going to do great things, and we're thrilled with her being there. I'm not done. I'm sorry, but and also wanted to officially welcome Dr. Counts, who is now with us. You've met her before. She is our assistant superintendent for supervision of schools, and she's been on the job and already seems like she's been here for a long time, fitting right in, and been great help to me on many things already. So welcome to Dr. Counts. And then the only thing I have left, unless somebody tells me I forgot something, is I just wanted to get on my soapbox a little bit about something on an impromptu manner. Today I did the annual sit with Kim Litzow, who oversees our Partners in Education program, our PI program. And I just felt compelled to say something publicly tonight because you all know that kind of by default in my previous role, I've been heavily involved in a lot of the politics, for lack of a better word, related to unaccredited schools and unaccredited transfers and so on and so forth. And I always have a lot to say about that. And I've been fortunate enough to have opportunities to meet with the governor over these situations, and I hope to continue to be a voice. In fact, I'm on a task force, a regional task force, to try to, since the bill was vetoed, which it's a good thing, it would not have solved our problem. It was a bad bill, my personal testimony. And so I'm going to continue to be a voice. But to make a long story a little shorter, so often people differentiate school districts based solely on one thing: test scores. Unfortunately, there's just way too much weight put in trying to define a school district by test scores and test scores only. And I tell people all the time, we should absolutely be proud of the Rockwood School District, 100%. But for many, many things, not just test scores, because the reality of it, folks, is if we don't have the test scores we have when we reside in the zip codes that we reside in, something is extremely wrong. Show me a flourishing school district, and I'm always going to be able to show you probably a flourishing community that it sits in. That's obvious when we have districts that, communities that aren't flourishing. But what really differentiates school districts and what they do to create champions for children, it's things like our Partners in Education program. We take that for granted, but when you look at the stats, we gave over 9,000 presentations through that program, brought to children in classrooms that were partnering with outside businesses and outside resources And it's so easy to take that for granted, but that's an enormous number of kids, and it's tailored to the needs of the school. Kim Litzow has staff that goes and meets with our schools and our principals, and based upon what they ask, and we have this huge catalog of things that are in place, but if there's not something in there, the pie department goes and finds it. And we're on the cutting edge with our project interface, which is really similar. We talked today about adding an entrepreneurship piece that Karen, you and I have talked a lot about that in our curriculum end of things. But we've got something like that. That's what sets school districts apart. That's what an impoverished school district doesn't have, that we have, that can make so much difference in the lives of children. So Kim's not here. I didn't tell her I was going to do this, but it still doesn't make it any less important to just say publicly that we should be so thrilled and thankful and for what we can take for granted, the work that is done in the pie department and that Kim leads. So I just wanted to say that it's something like that that differentiates the Rockwood School District, and we should be proud of that. I want to Paul.
Thank you.
Not for me, for Kim. I'm done.
All right, any other board member comments?
It was, he left out that he was recognized for an Outstanding Leader Award.
Did that slip his mind?
I think he
There you
did.
go.
So I think we should recognize that because our school district is going in such a positive direction, and it's not, it's a reflection of leadership. And I think that, you should have said that.
The award was for
It's a big
an
deal.
outstanding motivational leader. as I
Yeah.
recall. So,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Another thing, there was a little girl that inspired my kids to get, my kids are really passionate, but she did something that was pretty different. Her family, she decided she wanted to build a free little library, and she's going into kindergarten, and she, reading and literacy is so important to her, and so her family, they put in hundreds of hours literally to build this library. And I don't know if anybody's ever seen them, you put them in your yard essentially, you put books in there so the community can come and take from there. And put new books in there, and everybody is kind of in exchange programs. But her name is Stevie Dorr, and she's going to be going to Westridge, and she's just a beautiful little soul, and I just thought it was great that, she invited us, she put in so much time and effort, and things like that should be recognized when kids, they're not doing something within our schools, they're still doing things within our communities and building those community bonds, and that's an admirable thing, especially for a little girl that isn't trying to impress anybody and seek any awards or what have you, so just wanted to recognize her.
Great.
That's great.
It's hard to see you all down there, but any other comments? All right. All right, then let's move on to the consent agenda items. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda items as submitted.
Second?
And a second. Is there any conversation about those?
Can we take a second or two and read the two gifts, charitable contributions? One is from Green Pines, and the other is the soccer shelter, 707 and 707 and 708.
Well, the 707 says that is asking the board to recommend to the Board of Education approve the donation of funds of $25,000 from the Green Pines Elementary parent organization to the Green Pines Elementary. So,
We've seen that several times this year. The parent organization is doing a tremendous job of raising money and giving that money back to the schools. They're to be congratulated each and every time, which they are. And the other one, I think, was the neat-looking soccer shelters?
portable soccer shelters.
Portable soccer shelter.
And that was done by John Lynch of the Show Me Cables. That donated that. That's about a $2,300 donation. So, both very notable.
Yes, thank you.
All right, any other conversation on the consent agenda items? All right, then the motion is to approve the consent agenda items. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. That passes. All right, we're going to start on the regular agenda items then. The first one is the transportation update. We don't have a motion required, but it's informational. I think Mr. Sloan's going to talk to us.
Should we just mark for me? Again, thanks, Dr. Knost and President Dole and board members for having us tonight. We wanted to just kind of give you a little update on transportation. It's been a little while since we've done this, and we'll basically wanted to give you a little bit of history of how we got to where we're at today with transportation, then our plans going forward in terms of an RFP this fall. So I'll just briefly run through some of this. And this slide really gives you a little bit of the history. The thing that I wanted to point out here is back in 2010, 11 and 12, we were really looking to reduce the budget for transportation, and a couple of ways that we did that was by reducing some of the services, eliminating activity buses, zero-hour buses, and then in 11 and 12 actually renegotiating the contract for an extension and reduced rates. So that's kind of led us to where we're at. Of course, this past year we had the benefit, with the kindergarten program becoming a full-day kindergarten program, we saw some reductions there in the kindergarten costs too, that helped fund that movement to a full-day kindergarten program. So overall, in the last 5-6 years, we've actually reduced the budget for transportation by 2%, and a big part of that's also fuel costs that we've been able to benefit from. In terms of where we get our funding from, we basically only get about $1.8 million of funding from DESE, and that's again based upon our ridership and mileage and those kinds of things. So just wanted to point that out. We get funding for any student that lives a mile or greater from their home door to the school. We actually transport kids that are a half mile or greater to school, and in some cases less than that. Contract status right now, we're in the final year coming up right now in the contract, so we will be putting it out to bid this fall, and probably in the November timeframe, hopefully coming back to the board in February to make a recommendation on where we should go with our contract. It's been a number of years. I can't even tell you when it was bid out last, to be perfectly honest. It's been a contract that's basically been extended over years through negotiations of rates and things like that to kind of a trade-off in terms of reducing contract rates and extending the contract, those kinds of things. So right now this is our plan, as I mentioned, to put it out to bid. And we know that there's a number of vendors out there, that contractors that would be bidding on our business. So we're not concerned about getting any activity for Rockwood. It's very an attractive district from a contract perspective. I did want to mention tonight we've got some of the first student team here, and I can just briefly introduce them. Amy Sides is the acting regional general manager for First Student. There's Amy. Next to her is Ben Carpenter. He's our lead router for the district. So he's taking care of all of our routes. Then Mark Ingers, our assistant manager. Now, we didn't have an assistant manager for a number of years at Rockwood, and he's been a great addition to help manage the overall operation. And then Mike Kamens, our site manager, and he's responsible for the entire operation. So, in terms of service issues, as I see it, I think we've got one of the big concerns we have is just the tight schedules that we have for the district, and this is something that's again evolved over time, and with the expansion of the district and just the growth of the area, that 45 minutes is just almost not enough time to get buses to school. And we run a 3-tier system, as most of you know, where we have a middle school route, high school route, and an elementary route. So many of our buses have 3 tiers, and that's a tough tough operation to get there on time, especially if you're going out further out in the southern areas of the district or western part of the district. So that is a challenge. There's not a lot of good solutions for that other than adding more buses, quite frankly, and eliminating 3-tier routes, and that can be costly. But we're working through it. These guys have looked at ways trying to make our routes more efficient, and I think we'll overall be in pretty good shape starting the school year. The other big issue, of course, is getting good qualified drivers. I mean, first thing is getting over the hump in terms of having a good, solid fleet of buses. I think we've reached that impasse. We're through that now, and got 16 more new buses coming this year. So I think the average age of our fleet is going to be around 4 or 5 years in terms of the buses themselves. But most of our drivers, 2/3 of our drivers, don't live in Rockwood School District, so they're from surrounding areas, and that's really a national issue in terms of trying to get more people to drive buses. It's just hard to hire and retain good drivers, but these guys are working hard to make that happen for us this year. I think I've got a guarantee that we're not going to have any open routes day one. We're going to have full-time drivers on every route, so I'm going to hold them to that. CNG is something that's talked about a lot. Alternative fuels are talked about a lot. Fort Zumwalt is actually doing propane in a number of their buses. I'd say not the majority of their fleet, but probably 25, 30 buses. And that's a good, clean fuel that they use. It's cheaper infrastructure-wise in terms of building a propane fueling station. And the buses are actually fairly reasonable in terms of cost. But long-term, the pricing of propane, it's not as stable as some of the other prices. It does fluctuate in the wintertime. So that's one concern we have. That CNG is the one that seems to be the up-and-coming fuel in terms of being some of the cheapest fuel and most readily available, and some of the cleanest fuel to burn. But there's a lot of things to overcome in terms of implementing a CNG program, and that the fueling station itself could cost over $1 million, and a bus is probably 25% more expensive to buy a bus. So you're looking at probably around $125,000 to buy a CNG bus. So those are, again, kind of things that we've been looking at very seriously, and with the cost of diesel fuel being as low as it has been, we're right at $2 a gallon right now with diesel. That's what the district's paying. I think we've averaged around $2.40 for the whole year, and that's a far cry from where it was a few years ago when we were paying $3.80 a gallon. So we're pretty happy in terms of that, where we're at right now. But again, it's something that we wanted to make sure the board knew that we're looking at, and if there's any push from the board to continue to search that out and really start looking at other options in terms of implementing a CNG plan here, we would certainly like to hear it. We have looked at applying for loans and grants that would help offset the incremental cost of the buses, and we may have more information in the future on that to bring to you.
It's something that Tim and Bill and I talk about a lot, and he hit the nail on the head. With the price of diesel fuel, we talk about it. It obviously would be there may be long-term advantages, but it'd be a heck of a commitment to go into to make happen. But it's probably something maybe when we start looking at the bid process going forward that we ought to maybe have more of an opinion on. So we don't need to discuss it tonight. It's too lengthy of a topic, but we at least wanted to mention it if the board has thoughts and opinions about it. Maybe be thinking, doing your own research when it comes up in the future for us to decide if we want to make that kind of a commitment going forward. But that's not the idea tonight. The idea tonight is just to make you know that that we have been thinking about it. And Tim and I think Bill's with us on this. We haven't felt strongly enough about it to bring it to you thus far, mainly because we're doing okay with diesel fuel right now. We know that it may not always be the same, but we at least wanted you to have that seed planted.
Bill, do you get the same Do you get the same number of miles per gallon on natural gas that you get on regular fuel, diesel fuel?
They're saying now that the technology, there's a new bus that will be introduced this year that's supposed to get probably a little bit better than diesel. The current CNG buses do not.
Okay.
In fact, I think it's, they're advertising maybe 4 miles a gallon, where we're getting about 7 on a diesel bus right now. But the new buses that are coming out, they're saying are getting closer to 8 or 9 in their trials. So that's yet to be seen though, when you get them out there and actually drive them in a regular, bus situation, school bus situation, where the mileage isn't going to be that great.
Okay.
How many buses do we operate?
Right now, we operate about 131 regular K-12 buses, day-to-day, AM, PM buses.
And we purchase new ones, what percent, 20% each year?
The district, well, obviously the contractor is responsible for that. We last year had 75, I think, 76 new buses in the fleet.
We lease the buses through a contractor?
Correct.
But we hire the employees?
Now, First Student's responsible
Well, they
for
hire the
hiring the
employees, too.
employees as well, and but we do have the final say in terms of whether that employee is going to continue to drive for us, depending on the level of service and that type of thing.
Okay. What results has Parkway had with their natural gas? I see their buses on 141 all the time.
Yeah, I think Parkway's been happy with a lot of the PR they've gotten about their program. They do plan on adding some more CNG buses. Their fueling station that cost just over $1 million has not been as good as they expected. So they've had to do some tweaks to that. But they operate the larger CNG buses that are, which are like 84 passenger buses.
Yeah.
And I think they'd like to go to the smaller buses that are going to be CNG equipped. So yeah, I think overall they like it because it's a cleaner bus. It runs cleaner. There's less maintenance on the bus. They operate their own and own their own buses, so that's important to them. And they're much quieter bus as well. So.
And they own their fleet.
Right.
Parkway owns their fleet, they don't contract, so a little bit of a different angle to look at how you would come into, to use the CNG. But again, we really didn't bring that up for a deep discussion on it tonight. We really just thought that we wanted to make sure that we planted that seed and for you all to be thinking about it. And if anybody does feel strongly, then we'll need to hear that going forward in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think we should see how the results are at other districts that are doing it and then
We can probably get that pretty easy.
decide down the road whether we...
There are a couple of districts in the Kansas City area that have, I think it's Lee Summit's gone with a large new fleet of 125 buses. Blue Springs is headed that direction too. I don't think they're going to do their entire fleet, but we'll see some results from those districts as well. Okay, so just kind of in summary, we've kept our transportation budget pretty tight over the years, reduced it by roughly 2%. Fuel has helped us a lot in that regard as well, and we're going to keep striving on improving the service. That's what it's all about. Any other questions?
I think we need to go back and mention that the bus inspections were 94.5% passed versus, was it last year or 2 years ago? Sebastian.
About 18%.
Previous year, 18%. That's great. Nice.
Yeah, it's a shame that the media doesn't show up when you have good news, right? Because that's definitely worth a
Mary will get
kudos.
the word. Mary will get the word out for us, won't you, Mary?
And I'm sorry, when I say media, Mary, I'm really not talking about you. You have to forgive me. I'm not.
Dig it, yeah.
No, I mean that in a positive way, Mary. I mean that in a positive way. But clearly that's definitely worth mentioning. And also, I want to make sure that I mention that I always operate with very high expectations. I know sometimes that can be a little bit of a pain because I'm going to question, and a lot of times if we get calls from people that are questioning, it probably often looks like I'm taking the side of that person and trying to make sure that we resolve, but that's just because I want to maintain those. And Mike, I want to say to you publicly that very, very pleased with how you responded to me and your staff this year. I know that you guys are working hard, and I think that 94% it's clearly, we have the expectation, but it's clearly because of the work of you and your staff. So thank you for that, and thank you for your dedication. And I think we've had a very good year with can we improve? Absolutely, always. But I think we've had a very good year with First Student and overall, and I think Bill and I agree on that too.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Other questions about the presentation? I think Mr. Sloan's going to stick around for the next one.
Yep.
Need a motion to authorize the superintendent designee to implement the 2016 procurement card program changes as submitted.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Sloan, can you tell us about it?
Yeah, I'll really keep this brief. Our goal with the procurement card program was to really initially, and I wasn't here when that program was initially started, that most P-card programs are designed to reduce small dollar POs from being generated. And there's a lot of expense in managing those POs and getting them paid, that type of thing. Our program has grown quite a bit, and it's kind of gone beyond a procurement card program to more of a credit card program. And so what we wanted to do really was take a really hard look at the P-card program, and based on the state auditor's recommendations that we went through back in 2013, which was basically do an annual review, make sure that you're issuing cards to the right people, they're being used appropriately and on a regular basis. You know, if you need a card, then we felt, yeah, okay, you should have one. But if you have cards out there that aren't being used, then those should be closed and not be out there, you know, becoming a risk for the district in terms of a hacking risk or whatever. Because we've seen fraud grow quite a bit, not only on our personal cards, credit cards, and debit cards, but we see it as well as in our P cards. So we basically went out to all of our card users and administrators, department heads, asking for their feedback on what cards are really necessary for your schools, your departments, and where could we combine or consolidate cards into maybe a different approach. And we actually talked to the state auditors about this. We wanted to implement what we call a department card or a school card that could be managed by a particular staff member, but used by multiple staff members. So all those staff members out there didn't have to have their personal cards. We got that feedback, and we basically had about 500 cards out there today that are active, and based on the feedback we got, we can reduce our program by basically half, so down to about 244 cards. And we found that, you know, a number of cards weren't being used that much. Some are very seasonal in use, so we thought those were good candidates for maybe consolidating into using a departmental type card. And again, our state auditors felt that was a reasonable approach, and thought we should go ahead and move that direction, and we decided to do so. So basically, we decided in looking at it that we could actually provide the elementary schools basically an average of about 3 cards each. And elementary only had maybe 3 to 5 cards in most schools. Middle schools probably, there were probably an average of 77 cards out there, but we could reduce that a little bit as well. And then the high schools had a lot of cards. So we came back and said we could probably do this with 2 cards per school in the elementary area, probably 3 cards at the middle school level, and I think 8 at the high school level. So that's a big change, and we felt that the activities office and the activities director felt they could help manage those cards by not having every coach with a card and using an activities card for their department. So that's the approach we're recommending. And that will also affect some of the support staff. We've looked at community ed, venture club, and our facilities department too, and found that we could consolidate some there with their centrally located staff. Yeah.
What about the support departments? Did you cut back some of their cards?
Absolutely, yep. And I can show you the numbers here. I think we, overall, it was about 60 cards that we eliminated from support staff, but the numbers are kind of like this, support staff. So we went from 201 cards right now to down to 142. So again, that was where there was centrally located staff in our facilities office that there was not a need for every one of those people to have cards. So that's basically kind of where we're at. Also, by utilizing these department cards and modifying the limits on the cards, we felt we could minimize the amount of changes on cards and also have it readily available for staff as they need it.
I challenged both Tim Rooney and Bill for my own comfort level to greatly reduce the way we use P cards throughout the district. It's not something that that I've ever been comfortable with, and I fully understand the convenience factor, and I guess that crosses over into an efficiency factor, but I think there are other risks that come with so many of them being out there, and so I'm really pleased with how much they were able to come back, and I also applaud our principals in our buildings who are willing to say, okay, we get it, we can figure this out and work with you and back those off. And the idea is to get away from a P card being in the wallet of so many people, and reconciling those purchases that are made. It's difficult. It's just a difficult task. So this is I sleep a lot better at night with this proposal than the previous proposal. And we should say that the district had already cut back.
Right.
Prior to me being here, there was even a greater amount that were out there, and that was largely due to the state auditor
Correct.
suggesting that. So this proposal is in line with the recommendation from the state auditor, and it's I think it makes me sleep better at night, which is important.
All right, any other questions or comments? The motion on the floor is to approve the changes that have just been submitted. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. That passes. Okay, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
I think Mr. Friend's going to join us. The next issue is about bond issue purchases, related contracts below or up to $150,000. So we need a motion to approve the bond issue purchases and related contracts from $7,500 to $150,000 as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Good evening. We have a couple items on that are under $150,000 this meeting for bond issue purchases, and I'll briefly recap what those are. The first one is John Deere Landscapes. This is associated with the synthetic turf installation that we are doing. When we chose to go the route of an organic infill, we knew that one of the downsides to that was you would need the ability to water those fields at some point. The people that we've talked to throughout the country that have these systems in place say that typically the months of July and August, when you go a week or two without rain, you do need the ability to water that organic infill to keep it at the right moisture level and keep it from blowing away. So this is something that we knew when we changed gears and went towards the organic infill that we were going to have to do. And these are the 4 water reel systems to do that at the 4 campuses.
And if I could just add a little bit to that, Chris's point that, and I know we've been down this path with this conversation with various folks, but, we really felt that we listened to our community that came out and talked to me through, whether it was town hall meetings or via email or what have you, that wanted us to go a different route than crumb rubber fields, and we did that. We researched. We still feel to this day we did a very good thing. And one of the things that the alternative organic infill allows us to do, and that's to keep our fields cooler. And we can even make that a greater success of keeping them cooler on the really, really hot summer days by adding moisture to them. They retain moisture. They pull humidity in, the crumb rubber, the cork, and the organic pulls humidity in. We can add to that. So it's really staying with the commitment that we made to our community that spoke out that they wanted us to look at something alternative. And we think the results are going to be very good. We're really thrilled about it. So.
Yeah, to add to Dr. Knost's point, we have a consultant on board through our architect that we hired to help oversee these projects. It has a lot of background in it. And we met yesterday morning. We have a weekly progress meeting with the contractor as well as our representatives. And he said there's a lot of people watching us right now waiting for Eureka to get done. We're actually dropping infill right now. And through the weekend, they should be putting in the organic infill. And there's people that are very curious to come out with temperature gauges and measure once that infill is in and compare it to rubber infill systems in the area, because there's supposed to be a significant difference. So there's a lot of people with eyes on us right now to wait and see what happens.
So is this like a regular water sprinkler system?
No, it is not. And that's something we wanted to avoid. We didn't want any kind of water pipe irrigation system underneath these turf fields, because if you had a leak, obviously that's a very pricey fix. So this is actually a portable reel that you'll pull around with a gator, set it up on a field, hook to a water connection, and it actually, we have the ability to water the field, the entire field, in less than an hour.
It's nothing like, we don't need irrigation anymore. That was the beauty, one of the saving points of going to synthetic fields. We don't need to irrigate them. This is much, much different than that. We're not trying to grow anything. We just want to make sure that in those extremely hot days that we just better have the ability to keep our fields cool, and by saturating the infill product that will help us do that.
Okay, brother, in this category?
I visited Marquette on Tuesday.
Okay.
But I didn't go down into the state, I just from the road at the top. And they have the crushed rock all in there now, right?
Correct.
And you're letting that settle to blacktop over that then?
No, they will not blacktop. What you see is what the turf will be laid on.
Oh, the turf is, so I
Correct.
saw the turf bundles all sitting around too.
Correct. The turf is
And
delivered.
one of the gentlemen there, he was not with that company, but he said that Eureka was further along in what they're doing.
That's correct.
Do they have the field down already?
Yes, the field is in, the turf is
And that's
installed.
why you're putting in the, okay.
Correct.
That's
They'll be
great.
actually finishing up Eureka. The field portion of Eureka should be done, weather
In spite of
permitting.
our rain this summer, are we okay as far as meeting their goals?
Yeah, believe it or not, we are actually on track. We are on schedule for Marquette and Eureka. Lafayette and Summit have always been, scheduled to come in about a month later. We think if the weather holds, we'll actually beat that, but we are at all 4 sites on
Well,
schedule.
that's good.
It's got a picture of the Eureka
Oh,
field he's showing.
It looks really good. It really
You're
does.
gonna need a new sign. That was my joke on Facebook. The sign says "Stay off the grass field."
Stay off the organic field.
only took us 9 years to
All right,
get
cool.
it.
Okay. All right, the second item that we have under 150 is tech electronics. That is replacing camera systems throughout the district. That's part of the cycle maintenance that we included in the bond issue package. This specific purchase is to address some pan tilt zoom cameras we have out in the district that are aging. Years ago, people thought pan tilt zoom, when this technology was really coming, was the way to go. Unfortunately, through the years, it's proven that it's really not the best way to do it, because your camera is constantly moving, they freeze with power surges, and it seems like every time something happens, the camera's aiming in a different direction. So the goal here is to take those cameras out of service and replace them with fixed cameras that are a little better technology.
Is that standard, or I shouldn't say standard, you go off 3 bids, and a couple of them decide not to bid, so you're still okay on that? There's
Yes.
nothing, you don't have to go out and get 2 other bids?
No, and typically what we'll do, if for some reason we have a low bid turnout, or if we have a pre-bid for a construction meeting where we have 6 people show up, but then only 2 bid, we'll actually reach out to them, via email or letter, and ask them why they didn't bid. That way we have that backup as well.
Those are the only 2 items in that category?
That's it.
Anybody have any other questions or comments about those? Then the motion on the floor is to approve those items. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Great, that passes. The next one is for bond issue items over 150. So the motion is to approve the bond issue purchases and related contracts over $150,000 from William Ittner for architectural and engineering services for the fiscal year 15 bond issue Eureka High School locker and weight rooms additions and renovations project.
That's a mouthful.
Second.
Trouble today.
Yes, what this agenda item is we've gone through the process. When we passed the bond issue, we know that we had about 5 or 6 special projects that were going to require architectural services for design. Eureka High School is one of those projects, and it's the one that we intend on launching the soonest. We've gone through the process, getting the RFQ out on the streets. We've interviewed architects. We've included building administrators in that process. And we've made recommendations for our projects to Dr. Knost. Eureka High School is the first one we wanted to get launched because we do intend on breaking ground in the month of December with the hope to have this project completely finished by the following school year. So this is the negotiated fee on the construction cost for William B. Ittner to do design services for the Eureka High locker rooms.
6% is a very standard fee for architectural engineering services.
It said you didn't have any other vendors. You went through the process and selected Ittner, right?
Correct. You're not required by state law to take bids. Actually, it's against the law to take bids for architects.
Okay.
You go through an interview process and a negotiation process.
But I do hope that the public is noticing how we're handling this bond issue. It's very common for districts to do RFQs, which are just looking at qualifications instead of bids, and select an architectural firm to represent them on all projects. We're utilizing an enormous number of architects. We're spreading this around and interviewing for each project and trying to make a conscious effort to select based on experience and appropriateness to the specific job, and we're doing exactly that, and we're able, to really utilize many architectural firms with our bond issue. I hope the public notices that.
Yeah, and you'll see in the coming meetings that we will be bringing our recommendations for the other projects pretty soon, even though they may not launch for another year or so. We do want to get people on board and start the design process.
Any other questions or comments? And the motion is to approve the bond issue for the single item that's over $150,000. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Then that passes. Mr. Friend's going to stick with us for one more, I think. I need a motion to approve the City of Wildwood permanent sidewalk easement as presented.
So moved.
A motion
Second.
and a second. Can you tell us just a little about that?
Yeah, it's a very straightforward request from the City of Wildwood. At Wildwood Middle School, they built a subdivision to the west of that facility. It's a very small subdivision, cul-de-sac, and then there's some connection points that they just want to connect out in front of the building and in the corner of the property. It's a very standard request. And it has been reviewed by our attorneys and
And they're going to put in and maintain the sidewalk, so.
correct.
Okay. Any other comments or suggestions or comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. That passes. Thank you very much. Next one is dealing with a policy.
I have a question. On the classroom, replacing the locks on the doors in the classrooms, has that been completed now?
Yes, sir. We are nearly complete throughout the entire district. The only school that we have left is Lafayette High School. They're finishing that up now. The reason why that's taken a little bit longer and we saved it till last is because they're rekeying the majority of that building. The lock sets in that building were kind of a disaster as far as key control over the years. So we've taken this opportunity to tighten that up. But Lafayette High School will be the last campus done, and it should be done within the next week or two.
So it'll all be in by the time school starts?
That is correct.
Great.
Yeah, and that is just the corridor to classroom doors. We'll come back with another phase next year. We have a little budget left, and we'll address with the administrators other doors they may be concerned with. But all of the classrooms connecting to a corridor will be done.
How many classrooms do we have to do?
I want to say this summer we did 1,600 locks,
1,600.
so it's quite a few.
Okay, great.
Okay.
All 1,600 work.
The next item is 8.06, the readoption of a policy, and we'll do the motion and then we'll have Dr. Gross to explain it to us. I need a motion that policy and regulation 0342, nepotism, conflict of interest, and financial disclosure be readopted as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
So the readoption is required through statute. We have to have this in place. We have to visit it every other year. It's the year to do that. It was last approved in 2013. There's no changes to it. Of course, it has met attorney review, but the statute provides that a political subdivision with an annual operating budget in excess of $1 million has to adopt the ordinance every other year. Order a resolution which establishes and makes public that the subdivision's own method of disclosing potential conflicts of interest and other matters of financial disclosure, which by statute fall under the jurisdiction of the Missouri Ethics Commission. Rockwood School District is required to readopt the policy and regulations. So we have to do this again, changes to it, but it's time 2 years later to readopt.
So just as a matter of normal procedure, we need to re-vote on it every 2 years, but I would encourage all the board members to take this opportunity to, they're not very long, but just read through it again. The idea of redoing it every 2 years is that you kind of read through it and get refamiliarized with it. So I encourage everyone to do that. Any questions or comments? All right, the motion is to readopt that policy and regulations. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Veto, that carries. All right, we're down to the last item, the proposed agenda for the August 6th meeting. Pull that up there. All right. Right now, this is how it stands. We're going to have a little bit earlier closed session.
No.
Actually, we don't. I should have changed that.
Thanks for
I will make that change.
Just the 6th.
So that's going to be 6 o'clock then.
Yes,
Will be
standard time.
Okay. And again, if anybody wants to recommend anything, you can say something now or send it fairly quickly within the next week to Ms. Vito. We'll get things on there. All right. Future presentations and events to attend. Are there anything to present? What day school start? The 13th?
13th. It's
That
coming.
will be here in the blink of an eye. We do have one more board meeting. Unfortunately, I'm not going to make the next board meeting, but for all the new board members, it's fairly common practice that board members, if you want to, it's not mandatory, but go out with one of the administrators that day and greet students as they come into school. It's a very pleasant thing to do. It's a very happy thing to do. Most of the students are pretty upbeat. Most are pretty upbeat on that first day. So if you have a chance to do that, I'm sure Gretchen will put together a list and pair up administrators and board members. So if you have a chance to do it, please do. All right, are there any other discussion topics this evening? One last chance to bring up any new business? In that case, we will stand adjourned. Thank you.